Hello everyone. In today's exercise, we will be building the shed roof you're seeing currently. So we will be mixing um, glulam beams with CLT panels on the roof, and I suggest you look at the PDF file that we will be sharing with you in order to achieve this exercise. So there are different views with different dimensions that you can follow to build the project. So let me move the PDF away and let's get started with an empty file. So again, we suggest you create a new folder for a new project. So here my folder is called S2 and I'm right clicking in the folder and creating a new Cadwork 3D file. So right clicking in the, let me start again. So right click, new, and Cadwork 3D file. I'm going to use the init English in Imperial inches. So you see it's grayed out, and here I'm just leaving the whole name selected, and I'm gonna overwrite the name, and I'm gonna call it shed roof. There we go. I click OK, and it's launching with an empty file. So anytime you start a new project, or every time you start a new project, the project data window will pop up, and I can fill the different fields. So again, these fields will be useful when exporting shop drawings, bill of material, etc., in order to fill the title block for the different files you will be exporting. So here, I'll just make it short. I'll call it roof. Then the next one, it's the project number and the architect. Let's say it's Bob. Customer, it's TDI. And designer, I just put my initials here. That's all good. Then I can continue with the address, etc. And if I want to, I could here place the project on a map. So let's install it in Corvallis, Oregon, and let's put it somewhere on campus on an empty space. I guess here that should be fine. You see that automatically the address is updated, and I can simply close this project data. Then you could define the logo that's already defined, and eventually write a description. I'm not going to add any descriptions here. So now we have an empty file, and we are going to start with the slab. So the slab is a 65 feet long by 46 and 8-inch thick. So we are going to add an auxiliary element. So it's a concrete, and we will pick the name predefined called slab. Then the thickness of the slab is 8 inches. And I'm going to start from the origin here. I'm going to move the slab later on. So I'm going to go in the X direction, 65 feet. So you press on the keyboard X. Oops, I just pressed Y, V, okay, X. And here it's 65 feet. Enter. Now in Y, you always see the arrow showing the positive direction, and here I'm gonna type 46 feet, enter. Back in X, I can click on a point, and because I specified X, it will be projected, and then I can simply right click in order to close the contour. Okay, now I'm gonna offset the slab. So I right click twice to go back to the main menu. I left click to activate the slab, and then I move it. So 5 in X, and I'm going to move it minus 2 feet in the X direction, and I'm going to move it again 5Y minus 3 feet, 36 inches. So here, this intersection here and the origin of the model is actually the um, the location of my column. So the first column here should be placed 2 feet horizontally in X and horizontally 3 feet in Y. Then I can actually set up my grid. So I select the horizontal line. You see here I could stretch that horizontal line is too short. So let's stretch it first. You see that when you select this grid, it's actually several items that are activated. So I have 2 lines and 1 surface. So the red are the lines and the surface is the blue, the letter basically. So for me to be able to select the line only because I want to stretch that line, I left click on the line, and then I can press 7 to stretch, and I can click here on the intersection first, and let's extend this line slightly. So I press 7 again, and then let's do 10 feet. Enter, and now the line is sticking outside of the slab. Now I can left click again on join. So you saw that join was red. I was able to select only the um, the line and not the rest. Now I'd like to move this guy up. So again, 5 in Y up here, and I'd like to shift it a little bit. So 5 to move and 10 feet. So in Y. There we go. And again, I need to stretch this line. So left click on the button here on join and press 7 here and 7 again, 10 feet. There we go. So now we have the first grid. Now I need to put the one on the, or add the one on the other end of the slab. So 6 in the Y direction, and I'm just gonna go up here, and then I'm gonna move this guy back 2 feet. So 5Y minus 24. There we go. And now we need one in the middle. So I can press M for midpoint, and I can click, I'm gonna click here and here. And now it shows me the midpoint. I can select this guy and now press 6 to copy in Y down here. So here this is normal. We've got 2 feet in Y and 2 feet in X. I can measure, so left click on measure, direct distance, shortcut is O, and I'm just gonna double check here the distance. So dx, dy, I'm correct. So now I'd like to copy this guy on the other end. So here there is also a trick. Instead of copying to the end and then moving back a couple feet, what I can do, I can select the whole line, the whole grid, and press 6 to copy, then S for symmetry. Now the symmetry plane is X, and I'm going to press M for midpoint. And I'm selecting left clicking on the edge here, and it just copied this symmetrically, and I'm already set properly here. Now I need a few, well, 2 columns here, so centered. What I'm going to do, I'm going to use the auxiliary lines, and I'm going to divide equidistant. So here I left click on the intersection here and the intersection here, and I'd like 3 divisions, and the result of my division is 20 feet and 4 inches, which is fine. I right click and I have the location of my other columns and grid lines, so I can copy now 6. I'd like 2 copies, so 6 2, number of copies, right click to validate, and then I'd like to copy in X only, and I click on the first point and it copies equidistance. It makes two copies. Now I need to edit the text, so individual items, I left click here, and I'm going to double click on the letter, double click, and here type the letter you wish to have. So same thing here, that's C, and same thing for the numbers. We'll fix the location of the letters down the road. And the last one for here, because I made a horizontal copy, symmetry, it turned that on, like mirrored it. So what I can do, I can press 5 to fix it, S, X, and I can click here and it just reverted that letter. Okay, so now I'm all set with the grids and the slab. I can continue with my first column. So here I'm just going to show you quickly the section of the construction. So I see that the highest point of the roof is 24 feet. So I'm gonna add columns that are 24 feet long. I know it's gonna be too long, but we'll cut them again later on. So I can work in 3D. I don't need to go back to well, go in a 2D plane. We'll go in a 2D plane later on. But let's add a column. So I can choose the through the menu, or I can use shortcuts. So let's go to add a beam. So the shortcut is L. It's a square beam, 20 by 20. It's a glulam. So we'll pick white here in our setup. And let's say it's a post. So I have post already defined. Now I simply click here on the origin or the intersection here. That's my post location. I press Z and type 24 feet. Now I simply right click straight away and it gets out. Now I could copy this guy, or what I'll do, I'll just continue It's the exact same cross section, same name, same material, and then Z 24 feet, right click, left click on the third point intersection, and Z 24 feet. There we go. Okay, now we are done with our columns. Now we would like to continue with our roof. So the roof slope, if I look at the detail here, it's a 1 pitch, so 1 to 12. And we'll check we need to be at 20 feet and 2 inches at the bottom of the roof. So to do this, um, it's just easier if I go in a 2D plane. What I'll do, oops, I need to get out from the menu, so I'm still in the add mode. So I right click the 4 times to go back to the main menu. And here I've just added this column. I can just delete it. And what we'll do, we'll select these 3 items. So again, left click, right click, right click. I'm going to show you another trick here. You can also press Shift Control simultaneously and left click to drag a line across the parts, and it will highlight, activate all the parts that are crossed by the line. Then I can go in a 2D plane. So again, there are shortcuts. Here I'm going to use the menu, 2D plane. We'd like to go in a plane perpendicular to X or normal to X. Alt X is the shortcut. We want it to go through a point, and the point will be here. We will start the roof exactly here on the end of the slab. Now you see the arrow showing the direction I'm going to look at the plane. There we go. So here I activated the post for a good reason. It's because if they are not in the plane, and if they are not selected, I'm unable to see them. What you can do, you can project these. So you see, once you are in a 2D plane, you have some options to show the sections of the parts that are being crossed by the plane, or you have the ability to project parts, activated parts inside the plane. So this is what I did, and now I need to offset the roof height. So we know it's 24 feet. So I'm going to the auxiliary lines. So shortcut is E. So I'm going to use the shortcut E. So without going into the auxiliary line menu, I press E, and now 24 feet. 24 feet so I click slightly above the line here, and actually it confirms my columns or posts are 24 feet long, so this is exactly what I got. And then I'm gonna add an auxiliary line, a vertical one, so I press Y and click on the corner here. So this is the corner of my CLT roof panels, but I need the slope, and I'm gonna add still here an auxiliary line as well, because my CLT will start here on the right and at 1 pitch until they reach this vertical line. So I right click and get out from the offset, left click on auxiliary line, and I need to specify a pitch. So currently my units are set to inches and degrees, but when working in Imperial, I can specify a pitch by pressing $, 1. And you see here there is a reminder showing that, for instance, $1 will be 1 to 12. So that's exactly what I need. So a 10 pitch would be $10, etc. So there we go. And here I'm gonna click on the intersection, and now I have a 1 pitch. Now it's always, when adding an angle, it's always going counterclockwise or trigo direction. Um, Now, if you can always invert the slope by pressing tab on the keyboard. So you see here, each time I press tab, currently it's reverting the slope. So I leave it this way, I'm fine with it, but that can be useful down the road. I right click to get out from the menu, and now I can add my slab. So here it's saving. I just right click to say yes, I want to save. Every 15 minutes it's saving. And now I'm adding, this time it's not a beam, it's a panel. And the panel, I'll make it rectangular, if or I could do a contour. So here I have two options. I'll just do it, I'll just add a rectangular one. It's a section, so I see the thickness and the width of the panel. The thickness is 7, and the width is, I'm gonna do, it's 46 feet, um, but I'm gonna do, yeah, 50 feet, and I'll cut it later on. So 50 feet. The slab width is 46, so I'm gonna make it slightly bigger. And I'm picking a CLT from the list. I'll call it roof. And here I need to set the point, the first point, so here. And now it's asking me for the length, because it was a cross section. I defined the thickness and the width. Now the third dimension, I'm gonna do it 65 feet, which is also the slab length. Now your slab, your CLT appears horizontally, but I can orient it using an edge. So if I press K, I can click on my auxiliary line, and now you see it's at the right angle. So now I can just, using um, the scroll button, the wheel, I can place it, justify it at the bottom of the line, the auxiliary line, and then I can right click. So here I right click 4 times, and now I can cut it like plumb. So I can simply left click and then press C to cut, and I can click here and C again, cut it there. So you saw I picked the center of the panel, so I know that the reference point is in the middle, and I can cut it easily without losing like the main part of the panel. Then what I can do, I can select, so left click on the bottom, at the bottom of my column, right click and right click, or I could have done like the shift control again, and here I'm gonna cut them underneath the CLT. So C to cut, and here I cut it, and I cut them underneath. Perfect. So now what I'd like to do, I'd like to split these panels in 10 feet stripes. Should I do it now or later on? Yeah, let's wait and we'll do that later on. Let's just quickly look at our um, PDF. So we see here that these panels should be 10 feet wide. So there are different ways of doing it, and we are also working on the new feature to be able to cut these panels like in a series with the right tolerance. We see down below that we need a tolerance like a space of 1/8 of an inch. Note that 1/8 of an inch, it's the bare minimum. I think it's better to have a little bit more um, tolerance, but it always depends on each project. So here it's just to show you how it can be done, but eventually you might have like a 1/4 of an inch space between the panel, or depending on what the engineer is suggesting. So anyway, let's move back to our model, and I'm gonna like split these panels in 10 feet stripes, so I don't have to go back. So I go in a 2D plane. I'm already in a 2D plane, but I go back to the auxiliary lines, and I'm gonna add a perpendicular. So I click on the edge here and click on the endpoint. So that's my reference, and now I can offset 10 feet. So that's gonna be my first panel. So I do it this way, and now I can split this panel. So here I don't want to have an offcut. I want to keep both. So what I do, I press C D to cut in two, and I click here on the auxiliary line. So that's the first panel here. What I need is a gap of 1/8 of an inch. So I press E and I type 1/8 offset, make sure it's the right one, and I click here. I could offset also again 10 feet from, so slightly towards the right, and I know I can cut it here. So what I'll do, I select the panel here, press CD, it's cut, but now I need to cut it also along this line. So C again, there we go. Here I just, by mistake, I clicked here slightly above the bottom of the panel. I can delete a line. So I go to the auxiliary line, left click on the line, it disappears, and I can continue with my offset 1/8 of an inch here, and 10 feet once more. What I could do, I could copy these guys by an array, and copy 10 feet wide panels. That would be also an option. So here I left click to select, and now you have to be careful. The reference point is here. So if I press C and I left click, this portion will stay here, and the big portion of the panel will disappear. So what I do, I middle click here, and because I middle click, part with active point disappears. So middle click, and now you see that portion disappeared, and I can press C again. Actually, I should undo and press CD because I don't want to lose the, the panel. So here I can double check, but you see here the segment length is 10 feet. So I can continue and offset again 1/8 of an inch here, 10 feet here, and I think I'm done with this. I can select this guy, CD, um, well, no, CD, yeah, here, and C here. There we go. And here I still need 1/8 of an inch, so E, 1/8, enter, offset, and C again to cut. There we go. So I'm done in this plane. So what I'll do, we go back to Cadwork to 3D, and we see now that our roof was placed on the other side of the plane, and this is not a bug, this is normal because we have here the settings, the setting HVA, so that's for the location of the parts you add in a 2D plane. It says is to the back, so you remember when I set the plane, we were looking at the plane from this direction, from right to left, and all these guys went in the back. So I can left click on the first one, right click and shift control. My reference point is all the way down here, but I could just like press 5. The reference point is not that important. 5x, 65 feet in this case. And if I do a Z view, I see that my slab, if I switch to wireframe, I see that my slab is matching my roof surface. So now we can continue. I can copy these guys twice, or actually 3 times. I'll change I'll fix here. We have to cut a portion of the roof, but before we do that, I'm just gonna copy these guys. So the space, well, I can use a vector. So 6. I'd like to make 3 copies, so 3, right click, and then W for vector. And the vector, you can use the grid, and here we are at the right location. So actually this post can be deleted. Now I can add the girts. So actually I'm wrong. These posts are not needed. I just need, I believe, this guy, and yeah, there is also the horizontal grid here is not exact. I'll have to move it because we are placing um, the one here based on the um, the cut I have on the roof. So we'll see that later on. So if I go back to my model here, so we see that if I go back to the very top of my PDF document, we do not have a post or column in the middle here. So that's the reason why I deleted it. Okay, so let's add some girts. So I'm going to concentrate on these. So left click, and the girts are actually 8 by 30. So here I have two different ways. I could find the midpoint of the face here, the faces. So M and then left click. So now I have 2 points in order to add my girt. So to add the girt, L, and to add a beam, the girt is 8 in width by 30 in height. And it's a glue lam, it's a girt, and I simply click on the two edges. I offset it, and here the ends are at 90 degrees, are cut at 90 degrees automatically. So here I'm missing some material. Here it's too long, there is a collision. If I go in wireframe, we see it clearly. So what I'll do, I'll just select this end, press 7. Actually, I should have eventually added that beam using a different point, so it would have been already long enough. But here I'm stretching this girt by, let's say, 10 inches. That's enough. And now I can cut it. So there are different ways. I can use a plane to cut. So I can press C and then pick the face here, and you see it's adjusted now. And same thing, note that my reference point is in the middle, and I'm not afraid of cutting both ends. I'm not going to lose the wrong end. Okay, I was working in wireframe. I have the first girt. Now I press J. I can actually keep the roof away, so I can all these parts that I want to hide are CLT, so I select one, do Control A, and here we have our attribute selection window, and I can press M for material, and I can press the star button to hide these parts. So now what I need to copy this guy. I'll copy it 3 times, so selected 6 3 times using a vector, and the vector is again the same as before. Here this is going to be too long, but I'll need to adjust the that column here later on. Now we need some more, we need some purlins across, so I'm going to press M for midpoint and click here and there. I have these points, and the purlins are 5 by 20. So again, I press L, width is 5 inches, 20 is the height, it's again glue lam, it's purlin, so alphabetical order. You can press the first letters in order to filter when you have a long list of names. And here I pick the 2 edges, and then I'd like to center it. There we go. But here it's too low. So what I'd like to do, oops, I need to right click to go back to the main menu, and I'm gonna delete this guy here. There we go. So now I'm picking this edge, and so the reference point is on this end. So maybe we see a little bit better in wireframe, and now I need to move it vertically 5, Z, and I can pick the point here. Now there is a little bit of material that is colliding with the roof. If I go in an X view, so click on X, zoom in, we see clearly that we have to cut with the slope, like do a bevel cut. I can select the bottom, press C, and pick the edge here. There we go. I can copy it once, and then I'll be able to copy it towards the back. Well, actually, yeah, let's copy it horizontally. So 6 in X, and I just left click here. My reference point was here at the back. Now I select through the center. I can find a midpoint here. There we go. So the part is still selected through the center. I'm still in the midpoint command. I can right click, and now I can copy this guy by pressing 6. There we go. And now I can copy it 3 times. So active point doesn't matter in this case. I'm not copying it to a point. 6, 3, so actually it's 2, and using a vector W from here to there. Perfect. We can now move back to our CLT panel. So to bring back all the whole model, you press J. There we go. Let me go back to shaded mode. And if we bring back our PDF, we see that the first couple panels are cut like 2 feet with a 2-foot overhang over the girt. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna pick the first two panels. So left click, right click, and let's take these guys, and two options. I can either cut them against, so that's what I'm gonna do, C to cut, and I'm cutting them. It's actually yeah, it's 2 feet from the center line of the column. So here CX, and then 2 feet. Um, I need to stretch 2 feet. So 7, I lasso both, and I need to make sure that so I left click, make sure the active point is on this end, or here. Both are fine. Then I press 7, need to do a lasso, and then 24. So there we go. Then for the other panels, I press J to bring the model back. I need to cut the other guys like in the middle of the girt. So if I select the post, that's fine as well. And then I go in a Z view in wireframe, and then make sure I have these 3 panels selected, and then I do CD, cut in 2 in X, and then I pick the center here. There we go. So here I have a small issue, well, a kind of an issue, a detail that needs attention, and that detail is actually the fact that we would like to have a plumb cut on this panel. So here I've got a kind of an issue because here this is not um, yeah, this is not plumb, but that's at 90 degrees from the top of the roof. So before we deal with this, let's do the spline connection for these uh, panels. So I need a spline. So here I need a spline that goes in between. So I need a center point between here and here, so I can place my spline, and the spline will be in this case 3/4 of an inch plywood by 5 inch wide. So I go to add. It's it's going to be a panel. Let's say it's a rectangular one. The thickness is 3/4. The width is 5, and it's plywood. So do I have plywood? Yes. So let's say color number 12, and I call it spline. It's already listed, and then I need to make sure that I am picking the right point here. There we go. So the again the the panel is actually horizontal, and what I need to do, I need to align this using align the spline using an edge. So I press K. So here you have to press plus in order to zoom in, or if you press Control, you can zoom in and out. If you do not press Control, then it's going to move the spline around. So here I press K, and then I pick an edge, and now you see it aligns the part properly. And now I can scroll, and it moves the part around until it's centered. And now I can use a function that is really helpful. It's the cut tolerance function. So here I activate the, the spline, and then I go cut, and here you have cut tolerance. So I want to cut it. I want to cut actually these two guys using the spline. Here I have already a setting here called plywood spline. So it automatically, based on the panel local axis, so on the width of the panel, so along the 5 inch dimension, so the width, I'd like to have an 1/8 of an inch tolerance on both sides. On the end, I have nothing, and above and below, I have it set to 0. So here, make sure it says cutting options, cut the soft element, and the rest can be left this way. So it's just gonna cut like an extra 1/8 of an inch on each side of the spline. I apply, click OK, and you see it's already there, it's cut. And the beauty is, if I select the spline and go to cut, to modify, I see that I still have a cutting set defined. So it's a plywood spline. I know it's for this detail, yeah, an 1/8 of an inch. Now I need to copy this spline like all on these panels. For the sake of the exercise, I've decided to just do the spline connection on this portion of the roof and have laps on this portion. So, well, yeah, practically you would probably you use the same connection everywhere and not mix them. That doesn't really make sense In this case here, again, it's just only for the sake of the exercise. So here I'm going to copy this spline, so 6, and I'm going to copy it, so 1, 2, 3 times. So 3, 6, 3, right click to validate. And here I'm going to use a vector, so W, and the vector is, because it's 10 feet, it's going to be from here to the center point here. And now I have my spline placed. It's actually not the right vector, because here the first panel is slightly different than the others. So again, 6, 3 times W, and I'm gonna pick this point here, and I have to be careful because I have that gap M for midpoint here. And this time I'm fine. So now the nice thing is, well, the splines are still activated. Here I need to cut these splines because they are too long in here. Middle click. Um, Here I'm fine. I want the spline to go all the way to here. So here I do, where is my active point? It's a little bit tricky to see. My active point is down here, so I can now cut, so C, X, and I can use a point here to cut them. And now I can select this one, so right click, middle click, and now the shortcut to cut these guys, so instead of going through cut tolerance, remember these splines have already a cutting set predefined, so I don't need to go through the definition of that tolerance. So here the shortcut is C, W, O for cut tolerance, and now I need to select parts that have to be cut. And it's telling me there are some cutting sets predefined. Yes, so I just right click to validate, and my cuts are done accordingly. So now I need to deal with this panel here. So let's see how it looks like. I need a plumb cut here from on the side here. So here and here, let's see how it looks like. So now I need to extend this face. I'm gonna extend it a few inches. Um, so I select the face, left click on the face, 7 to stretch, and here there is a shortcut A for stretch active facet. So A, and then I'm just gonna add 1 inch. I know it's more than enough. And here what I'd like to do, and again it's a little bit tricky, I want to cut from the top because this panel is cut 90 degrees, so it's not plumb. So I need to cut again this guy and make sure it's got an eighth of an inch. So I select the top of the panel. I can go to a 2D plane, right click, and here I'm gonna set it again at an eighth of an inch. So E, an eighth, there we go. And here I'm gonna cut this panel, so CC to cut contour, CC, from here in Y here, and I go back to this point here, and here I get out, and the goal is to make sure the portion I want to cut out is completely within the point, so I don't need to go back to the first point, but just here right click, and now it's done. Now I can go back to 3D, and I can actually cut the tolerance for that spline as well. So CWO, and I select this guy, right click, yes, and now the cut is done. So now I'd like to have a plumb cut. So if I look at here, I'm gonna have a plumb cut go through this point here. Okay, that would be the minimum size of the panel. So what I do, I go back, I select only this panel, press press the / to keep that panel selected, and then you go in a 2D plane perpendicular to X through a point, or you could just have picked the face. And now we need a plumb cut, so vertical, and I want that plumb cut to go through here. So right on that corner. And so I select the part, press C to cut, and click here. Now if I go back to 3D, you see how it looks like. So now I know I have no collisions. If I bring back, so J, I bring back the panels, I see that, oops, here I have the 1/8 of an inch, and here this panel connects with the properly with the other one, with no collisions. So I can check if there is a collision. I can select both parts and do Control K once it's saved. So Control K is the shortcut, no collisions between these guys. So now I have an issue. This panel is no longer 10 feet. I've increased the size because of the overhang. So I see there is almost like half an inch. It's half an inch too big. So I need to sort that out. So that's the next step, is to work on these 3 panels. So I can hide / and then I go in a 2D plane. It's going to be easier just going here. Then using auxiliary lines, I can define a 10-foot width. What did I do? So here and here. There we go. So here for the first panel, I need exactly 10 feet. So I offset E 10 feet, click here. So that's actually where I need to cut this panel here. So I can select it, press C, and here what we will be doing, I need to show you in the PDF. We're going to make lap joints. So here we've done the splines in the back, and in the front we need we'd like to have a 2-inch lap. So the first panel should be 10 foot, and then the next one has to be 9/8 before we do the cut. And the panels should connect basically, should be touching each other before I do the lap joint. So here I'm just gonna do um, I'm just gonna cut that in two, so CD and click here. And now basically what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna move this guy. I just need to keep a reference here. So I'm gonna use the shortcut S to add a straight on an edge. So I keep track of the location, and eventually I press S to have the top here. So I have a point. And because what I need to do, I need to move these guys, and I'm gonna have them touch each other. So 5. So I select actually this guy 5 here. I'm gonna select it 5 and move it here. And now I'm missing some material, but I have some material here. So I left click on that part and copy it from here to there. I could also stretch or copy. So another way would be to copy this panel, press 6 and copy it here. And then I have two panels overlapping. I could press D to solder. So D. And now I have one panel. So anyway, here I have 10 feet, which is fine. That panel is cut. I need these two guys to be together, so D to solder. And I need, actually, I could also solder these two guys, D. And now I have a big sheet, but it's obviously too big. I need to offset and have 9'8". Is it correct? 9'8", I believe it is. Yep. So 9'8", there. And now I'm ready. I need actually to CD, so cut in two before I can do the cut. So I go back in 3D. So here that sheet is 10 feet wide. This one is 9'8". It's gonna be added like 2 and 2. So that's the reason why it's gonna make 10. And this one is fine. It's gonna be slightly bigger, like 6'8", almost 6'9". So now I select these guys, and here there is a function, cut laps. Sorry, it's actually cut others. And here we have panel rabbit. So it's actually a lap or a rabbit, but some people would call it a lap. So it's a VR is the shortcut. And now I can select the edges. So I'd like one here and one there. Simply right click to confirm. And then the rabbit width is 2. And the depth, it's actually 3.5 centers. We have 7 in depth. And then the tolerance at the top, we'll put an 8, and at the bottom as well, an 8. So if I go back to my document here, this is what we mean. So 2 inches in the width, and then an 8 at the top, an 8 at the bottom. And once it's done, you see here it was added. So practically you have to think what panel you're going to start with. So I would say I would probably install the panel at the bottom, and then it's easier not to have the lap oriented this way. So you see here, you can press W and it inverts the 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 lap orientation. So by pressing W, it basically toggles. And so if we install this one first, then this one second, and this one third, then we also have to check and make sure that the location of the lap is done properly. So by pressing A, you see you have three different locations based on the panel width. So here this one was 10 feet, so I'm not going to have here I'm 4 inches too wide. Here I'm exactly at 10 feet, and I'm fine this way. So if I right click now and get out, I can check for the panel width. So we see we've got exactly 10 feet. We've got actually here 9, 10. So it should have been actually not 9, 8, but 9, 10. That was a mistake on my end. So what we can do, we can stretch this the width, and here we have whatever is left. So really the goal is to have panels that have a identical width, and so here I'm gonna stretch this. So I press 7. It's actually a good exercise. Then I lasso the width, and then I want to stretch along the width, so you press L, and here I'm adding 2 inches. There we go. And now I need to move this panel like a couple inches. I'm actually going to copy it. So no, it's okay. I can just move it. I have the other panel as a reference. So you select it, you press 5, and then K to move along an edge. You left click on the edge, and now I press 2 for 2 inches. And now I have again the right distance. So now I can press J, and I see that I can cut the panel. So I left click on the panel, press C to cut, and click on the face. There we go. And now I can make sure that all my panels, well, most of them are 10 feet wide. I can select one, do Control A, X, and I see that all these guys are 10 feet wide. So now what I can do, I can sort this. So the location, the idea is to have 2 feet overhang. So I focus and do, I'm gonna go in the 2D plane. So Alt Z, and I can click at the bottom here, and I can offset, so E24 from here. Now I can select this guy, press 5, Y, and click here on the intersection. So that's all good. I need, because I moved this panel, the post down, there is a collision. I can find this out by selecting both Control K, and you see that the roof is colliding with the post. So I select the post, press C, and click here. Great. J to bring back. I can now fix this by pressing C. Again, the reference, the active point is really important, and I can copy, so I can probably like hide temporarily, Control A, M for material. What I can do, I can select the midpoint here and copy it down here. So 6 M between here and here. And I also need to fix, because now it's not going against a column, I need to stretch this. So 7, I lasso, and I click here on the intersection, left click, and it's done. Now I need to add another girt here in the middle. I press M again, and click here. I have the 2 midpoint, and I'm gonna add a girt, so L to add a beam. I was already in a command, so L, the width is 5 by 14. It's glue lam, and let's say it's a girt from here to there. So same thing here. It's a little bit short, 7, 5 inches or whatever, and I'm gonna pick it through the center, press C to cut, and C to cut. There we go. So now I still need to fix my grid line, because the grid line was not placed properly there. So I move it, I go in wireframe, left click here on the left, 5 to move. We want to move in Y direction, and I pick the center here. There we go. So we have 2 things to do. We need to add a kind of a column or chimney that goes all the way through. So I'm just going to find a midpoint between here, the grid, and I'm going to add a beam. We've got a library of steel shapes in Cadwork, so W beams, HSS, etc. So we would like to add a round HSS, and I'd like HSS 14. So let's see here, 14 times 312. So that's the one I'd like to add. I'll just call it, what should I call it? I'll just call it post. And then I'm gonna pick here and go in Z, 24 feet, right click, and I wanna move this guy. So 5 in X. I want to place it in here, and it's actually 4 feet from the edge. So 5x minus 48. So again, the arrows are important. There we go. Here we could also do a cut tolerance with an eighth of an inch or a quarter of an inch or whatever. So that would be the same function. So cut tolerance with this guy, and here I could create a new cutting set. So I could say pipe, and we would like to have let's say a quarter of an inch all around. So we see for the steel shape, no cutting on the end, And now we have a 1/4 inch tolerance for this. Now, last thing to do, if I go back to the document, um, so we have the pipe, and we would like to have a small routing or milling on the top of the panel, like 6 inch from the edge, and it's a 6 inch diameter and a depth of 1/2 inch. So let's do this. I select the top of the panel, right click, it jumps in, then I hide the rest, and let's do an offset E 6 inches, 6. So from the end, from the top, oops, slightly underneath, and then I can select the panel, cut, remove contour. So the shortcut is CC. Let's get out and use the shortcut, C, C. And then we want to do a pocket, so it's not a through cut, it has a depth. If it was a through cut, then CC. If it was a circle, C again, or rectangular cut, you have different options. But here it's a pocket, so I press T. The pocket depth is 1/2 inch. And then it's a circle, so C. And then I need to define the center of the circle and the radius. I just type 6 and then enter, and the cut is done. It's actually too big. It was probably less than 6 inches in diameter. Yeah, actually it's wrong. It wasn't like six inches, but anyway, you get the idea. We'll have to fix the drawing here. It's inaccurate. Um, Actually, if I go back to my original file, I can check it out. Do I see here the diameter? I have the segment length. I could go in the 2D plane and check it. Oops, no, that wasn't the run. There we go. And here, if I measure O between here and there, this is, no, actually this is 6 inches. Oh, that was the radius. Yeah, sorry. Here, let me do it again. So select the face. So CCT, 1/2 inch. It's a circle, center, and it's actually the radius is 3, and that's it. My mistake. All good. So we will continue with this exercise, but for this like basic model, we're going to stop and add a post connector or post base in the next exercise. Thank you.